Good morning. It's still morning. I'm Deb Amos. This is such a timely panel, especially since what we've heard this morning about the rise in threats. This one is a little different. It's about the U.S. preparing to host two of the world's most significant sporting events, the FIFA World Cup in 2006 and the Summer Olympics in 2008, and there are many more events that fit into the title of this panel, which is How to Harden Soft Targets, the Threat of Terrorism to Major Public Events. So that's what we're talking about. And let me start with you, Akil. How do you plan, and every year, is there some new threat you have to consider? Yes.
There we go.
There we go.
As you mentioned, Los Angeles is going to be faced with a series of special events over the next 3 years. We have World Cup coming up, as you do here locally as well, followed by the Super Bowl, and then culminating with the Olympics in summer of 2028. So as you can imagine, the planning for the Olympics has already begun. The FBI is heavily involved with our Secret Service counterparts and other federal agencies in several of those planning committees. So security for the Olympic Village, which will be right across the street from our headquarter office at UCLA. We're going to house 15,000 athletes there. So as you can imagine, trying to coordinate 70 different countries, 15,000 athletes. Some of those countries don't like one another all too well, and keeping everybody safe is a security challenge. This is on top of all of the national security events that we have every single year in Los Angeles. So Oscars, Emmys, Golden Globes, Rose Bowl game, Rose Bowl parade. So we have a lot of practice, so to speak, in doing that. And keeping people safe is our primary goal there, while encouraging a successful event. So, you can go one of two ways. You can be overbearing with your security, hundreds of SWAT teams and armored vehicles, and almost look like a green zone in Iraq. And then you can go the other way, where it kind of looks like, a mall where you just have security guards. We try to get there and get somewhere in the middle there, where usually our heavy enforcement effort will be hidden behind the scenes. They will be able to respond quickly, but to the average viewer or average participant, they're not going to be too visible to them. And then on top of all the normal things that you would expect to see in an event like that, there's going to be tons of cameras, there's going to be tons of facial recognition, tons of bomb detection dogs, tons of security checkpoints and searches and all of that things. That whole thing together will provide a safe and secure event for the next 3 years.
Roberto, you have a different, set of challenges. You're on the East Coast. You're in New York.
Yes.
And New York is in some ways a magnet for people who want to make a statement. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about New York specific and what you have to address as opposed to what they have to address in LA.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So New York City is bright lights, big city, big tourist attraction. Millions of people come here to see the day just on vacation. We're preparing as well as for FIFA and also SAIL 2025, but we also have almost a footprint of events that we have here on a yearly basis. We have New Year's Eve, we have Thanksgiving Day of the Parade. We're looking forward to UNGA, with also all these dignitaries, different countries are actually coming in here. We've got to provide the security and safety. So when we come to special events, the first thing we got to make sure that everybody's secure and everybody's safe, and we want them to have a joyous, experience. And what we do is plan, and plan. This perfect example is New Year's Eve, right? You look at Times Square; it's very open, it's a very soft target, a lot of lights. All it is major intersections. And how you make that area a frozen zone that's what the key thing is. And then how we do that. We've got a big counterterrorism and intelligence footprint here. Mainly, it's overran by Commissioner Rebecca Weiner, with everybody, probably heard speaking yesterday. But our counterintelligence division actually has a big footprint, actually overseen by Jimmy Kehoe and Jason Huerta, who's here today. So that footprint is pretty much, it's hard targeting. How we do that, we create the frozen zone through concrete blocks. We utilize other agencies, such as sand trucks, to lock that down. We do barriers. We use blocker cars. We actually create checkpoints, and we use all the resources we can. We use metal detectors. We actually advise people, unfortunately, you can't bring chairs, bags, or big things, big items. And we want them to be secure and safe. While they're in that zone, what we call the bow tie, we want them to flow and actually enjoy themselves and not worried about the outside events. And there's a lot of things that could affect New York, especially the threat picture that we have here, especially internationally. I always say what happened overseas has a big impact in New York, especially what's going on overseas in Hamas and Israel. And we get that reporting through our liaison posts. So the NYPD is very, very unique in the intelligence division. We have 14 liaison posts throughout the globe, and they give our threat reporting to us, and we actually learn for things like that. So, for example, in Germany, there's the mass vehicle rammings that we see in the Christmas villages, one very recently and early this year, and that's why we actually increased the use of sanitation trucks. Everybody's like, why so many sand trucks around? Because you can't ram a sand truck, whereas you could ram a barrier or a single car. And that's why we actually increased the numbers of heavy weapons and major checkpoints with special emergency services and critical response teams. And also, a lot of people don't think about is the hotels. In the past, we learned about the Mandalay Bay attack in Las Vegas in 2017. That the Times Square is actually surrounded by hotels. So we need to liaise with hotel managers, actually let them know what our campaign is of see something to say something and anything that's actually suspicious. And what's great thing about that campaign is whatever actually comes in as a lead, we have actually investigated the NYPD Intelligence Division, and we actually share that information with the FBI, with our partners in the JTTF. So there's actually a deconfliction there and actually a great investigative resource. But one thing, you can make a hardened target as ever you want. You have the bomb squad, the dogs, and all that sort of stuff. You have all the toys utilizing drones with a great technology for space of size and any threats that we see. And also what's very unique about the New York City, its lowest security initiative, is thousands and thousands of cameras that we have from the NYPD, from city resources, and our partners that utilize for Times Square. But even though if the target be so hardened, it's the outer perimeter you have to worry about. That's also a soft target, and that's why officer awareness is so key. Especially with the threat picture, especially with homegrown violent extremism. We actually saw this a couple of years back, where 3 officers were attacked on the outside perimeter of Times Square. It was Trevor Bickford. He wasn't even a New Yorker. It was someone who was radicalized and wanted to commit jihad. He actually came from Maine 2 days prior, and he wanted to attack a government employee. And what he did, he attacked 3 officers with a knife. Lucky for us, we had our partnerships, Intel, JTF. We immediately was responding because boots on the ground. And one question we really want to know is, was he alone? Because that's what we have to do. We have to make our situation safe. And based on an investigation, we find out that he was alone. He was actually radicalized. And that's my biggest worry. That's what keeps me up at night, is the lone wolves.
Brian, I read that in the 1924 Olympics in Paris, there were a total of 355 unauthorized drones that were detected. That's 2024. We're now talking years ahead. Are we ready for that? As a country, is law enforcement ready for what is going to be, if it's 335 in 2024, who knows what it will be in 2026, 2028?
Well, thank you. First, I just want to say thank you to Mr. Soufan and Mr. O'Leary, the whole team, for having me. I'm very humbled to share this space, especially to share a stage with one of the, if not the strongest leader in the FBI, even though he's on the wrong coast, and a legendary hero NYPD officer sitting right next to me, both of which are my friends and I care deeply for. I thought I'd be cool not wearing a tie today. I wanted to be like General Miller yesterday, and I realized he is better than me in every way, and I have the body of a melted candle, so I'm not really pulling it off.
You're forgiven. It's okay.
Doing my best, all right? So
okay.
Very relaxed. So to your question.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, drones, like what Bobby said keeps him up at night, drones keep me up at night, right? Even though I'm a humble house husband and stay-at-home dad. I did spend the last 20 years doing other stuff. Drones, especially in my last position within the FBI, are a primary effort, a primary concern, and I am that concerned because I think that we are underprepared domestically. That said, that doesn't mean we're not making an effort to kick the ball down the field, and we are. We, being collectively state, local, tribal, territorial, learning from OCONUS experiences in not just the Ukraine, but Iran, Israel, and Mexico, frankly, because the cartels are using them with great effect.
The cartels are using them.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Not only in Mexico, but penetrating the border as well, doing prison drops, also doing surveillance for different routes or deliveries or whatever, you name it. That said, I think we're behind, but multi-pronged approach towards mitigating the drone threat is necessary. I think in a persistent way through investigations and intelligence, as well as reactive and preparatory for these special events that we're here to talk about. On the investigations and intelligence side, I'd say the most passionate and probably smartest leader in the FBI is either in this room or was, but he works on the JTTF. His name's Ed Panetta. Sorry to put your business on the street, pal. I've known him for 18 years or more. He is leading the charge on the investigative intelligence side, for the rest of the FBI who are also following and doing this, and that is through assessing the OCONUS threat and seeing what's going on. Who are the roots, the threat actors? Are there people in Somalia using drones to do this and that and the other thing? All right, take them off the board, you know. Exploit what's happening over there because it's coming, if it's not already here. Do that, but also private sector engagement, human intelligence, doing layered assessments of the threat. How many drones are flying over New York City every day? What altitude are they flying at? You know, start to shrink the problem. If they're flying above 400 feet AGL, that's a problem. If they're modified, if they weigh more, if they have a payload, if they're going faster, you know, that's a problem as well. So shrink that problem and then associate it with different things, and really, really nug it down, so to speak. That's all left of boom. As far as the reactive side or the preparation side for these special events, we are somewhat handcuffed by money, lack of, resources. The equipment to mitigate and detect the drones is very pricey. And then training, and then litigation. So I had to write this down. Counter-UAS Authorities Security, Safety, and Reauthorization Act expires September 30th of this month, of this year, again, and it has to get re-upped. And there's always congressional testimony regarding it. However, it lacks.
And what does it allow?
So that 124N, which is a section therein, allows the FBI and DHS to mitigate drones. So whether it's to capture that digital license plate and take it out of a designated area where they're not allowed to fly over these special events, whether it be Olympics or the World Cup coming up or the Super Bowl or the Ryder Cup on the island of my birth in the real 51st state. So I'm just South Shore garbage people, everybody, just chill out. Those litigation efforts are necessary to expand the authorities beyond the very best we can do right now, but minimal resources to address the threat that is here and coming, the pacing, emerging, and over the horizon drone threat to these events. And it's, you know, it probably won't be a big swarm on the first one. It might just be flying one of these small drones at 90 miles an hour into somebody, you know, and I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope the litigation efforts succeed to expand those mitigation authorities to our state and local partners, which will require a funding stream for them to buy the equipment, a funding stream for the federal government, I would argue the FBI, as well, in partnership with DHS, to build out a schoolhouse to train them on how to mitigate. They are mitigating, just not technologically right now, because they're not allowed to because of the law. until it's expanded, which I hope it is. And there is an effort to do that by the leaders within the FBI and elsewhere. But until then, we have minimal resources, minimal legal backup. The AG or her designee needs to approve the usage of mitigation technology at every event. And we can only be in so many places at once. DHS's resources are mostly concentrated on the southern border, necessarily. FBI resources are, we can only be in a certain amount of places at a time, and we have Club Cup, or World Cup, sorry, we already did Club Cup. Time is weird for me right now, so, you know, we have 11 cities hosting these games. You know, it's a problem that needs to be addressed. So as long as we invest in that, I think we're going to be okay, but it's going to take a colossal effort. And the technology that we're seeing on the battlefield, especially in the Ukraine conflict, is iterating at a pace that is staggering. And so you have this drone technology going in, iterates, better coming out, and then back and forth and around you go. And so we are a little behind on that, but I am hopeful that that's going to get better.
Are you, I'll ask all three of you, it just occurs to me, are you competing in your organizations and with Homeland Security for, you know, the deportation force, which seems to be sucking up not just resources, but personnel? And do you find that you have to raise your hand and say, no, 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 this is important. We need to get this right for these events coming up?
It's funny you say that. My peer, Chris Rea, who spoke earlier here in New York, we had that very conversation, I don't know, 48 hours ago. And so, yes, Chris, with everything coming up over the next 10 to 15, 20, 30 days here in New York and the area of responsibility that Chris is in charge of, absolutely. And so Chris is going to remain hyper-focused on that mission here to make sure you know, the safety and security of all New Yorkers in his AOR. I, too, have to weigh the pros and cons of being able to support the immigration effort while also maintaining a focus on the priorities of the FBI. And so that is something, if drones are what keeps Brian up at night, that push and pull is what keeps me up at night as the ADIC in Los Angeles.
So, Roberto, you're coming from a state organization, not a federal one. What can you do, what can't you do, because the legislation is behind the facts, I suppose I should say?
Yes, so as being New York City employees, this is a sanctuary city. So we have to follow certain protocols. So unfortunately, but you know, so when it comes to civil enforcement, in regards to immigration, we cannot be a part of that. But we can actually assist at any criminal investigation that has to do with illegals. So,
I meant on drones.
on drones, I'm sorry.
I meant on drones.
On drones, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So in regards to drones itself, right? So we have the capability of drone detection, but not mitigation. As Brian was saying, you know, if it's a Tier 1 or Tier 2 event, which is a special event assessment rating, that's when Washington federal partners actually will assist us in you know, drone mitigation. Like, we do not have that authority. In big events, we actually do embed ourselves with the Secret Service and the Coast Guard and the FBI. A perfect example is during the 4th of July. When the fireworks were going off, they mitigated about 31 drones, but they identified 181 flying around. In New York City itself, it's unlawful to fly a drone unless you're utilizing 5 you know, city designated areas, which are city parks. If not, you actually need a permit, and those permits are really given not for recreational but for commercial reasons. So as Brian was saying, you know, those calendar events, which I call calendar events, or those major events that the federal partners do come to New York to assist us in drone mitigation, they actually leave out the other major events. Like, perfect example, like the Israeli Day Parade, a high threat environment, right, especially what's going on. This is the first year that we actually considered securing the Israeli Day Parade the same way we do New Year's Eve. Wow. First time, due to the threat environment. So even though we request the restricted airspace, which we do get from federal authorities, but we don't have that mitigation effort. We had the detection effort. We have, based on our counterterrorism team, is a drone detection squad, we actually have technology to identify these drones, activate the technology to identify the pilot, the location, try to, you know, interact with that individual and try to get that drone down. We do not have the mitigation authority to do that.
So you don't have authority, if you had to shoot one down?
No, absolutely not. We don't shoot things down in the city. I'm just saying, we do not shoot things down. Bobby Rios is not saying that, all right? So, but the thing is, I think that what Brian is saying, the threat of drones and the payload is there. You could activate a drone anywhere, small, large. It could have anything on it. It could have explosives. It can manipulate anything. I think the risk is there, and the risk is too high just to ignore. You know, even though if it's a small event, large event, or a concert, I think local authorities should have the same authorities as federal authorities to mitigate in a controlled environment.
Brian, I was in Ukraine this summer, and every 14-year-old is making drones in their basement, so this is not a joke. So the cartels use them. I see that there's a practical reason for them to use them, but is there any reason to think that bad actors, for want of a better term, for people who, nihilist terrorists is what they're called, that's a new word for me, and I wonder if there's any evidence that groups are picking up training, figuring out how to use this as a tool?
I mean, I think it's a safe assumption that they are, right? You know, if you have a motivated bad actor who wants to commit an attack or breed chaos or just scare somebody, it's very easy. Get a commercial off-the-shelf drone and use it for something. They're very easy to modify. It's very easy to learn how to. I mean, the internet's a great and terrible thing. So, yeah, no, that's a real concern. And I think we're lucky, we're fortunate, I should say, that nothing has happened yet. But it's just a matter of will. You know, the way is there. And if I could jump on what Bobby said, and to clarify, the state and locals are mitigating in the way they can legally, but it's through ground intercept teams. So you can detect, right? State and locals can, and everybody else can detect. But then once you detect, you intercept, you try to identify the pilots and go intercept them and have them deal with that.
So who do you call?
When?
So you can, oh, look, there's a drone, I can see it, right? And who do I call to say, could you please do something about that?
Well, it's, now, in the context of special events, it's baked in to the operations plan. And so you will not have, even if the federal government can't provide support because of the lack of resources and people to commit to helping that event, state and locals are still addressing that problem, or should be. And so they'll have their teams there using the tools at their disposal to mitigate the threat in the ways that they can legally.
So let me start with this. You're right, we haven't had this yet. Is there any way to decide whether the threat level is rising? Because there hasn't been an event. There's no way for you to know which bad actor, if they are nihilists, they can act alone. I don't understand how you make the threat assessment in a timeline with so few things that you know.
And so we know actually a whole lot about drones based on, you know, the war in the Middle East and Russia, Ukraine. But I'll take you back. I gave some opening remarks just last month about drones at a conference in Los Angeles. And I just Googled, before my speech, I Googled drone attack Western Hemisphere, because I thought, is this happening anywhere in the West? And what came up was a bunch of drug cartel-related stuff. Sinaloa cartel, CJ&G are at war with one another, and they're dropping grenades on one another using drones. But nothing super recent with that. What did open my eyes was August 22nd of this year, 8 Colombian national police officers were killed in a helicopter that was struck by a drone by ELN. And that just happened. You know, to take down, you know, a helicopter like that and 8 police officers lose their lives is rather significant. So it's coming. Knock on wood, we haven't had something that significant here in the homeland, but that is what's keeping us up at night and we're preparing for.
Mm-hmm. And is it specific to New York? Because if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, and that includes terrorists. So do you see specifics that it's rising, that there is more drone activity around New York or around activities in New York?
Well, when it comes to New York, I can't say the threat is very drone specific. I can't say that, but I can see the drones actually being used as tools. But then again, I always say New York will always be a target. You know, like most of these targets, most of the events that happen in regards to terrorism in New York, they've been like lone actors. So who's to say that there's someone who's radicalized or someone who's been in his basement that's been, you know, isolated and wanted to do something and you know, do something like a bad event? Why wouldn't he use that? It's easily accessible. It's not illegal to purchase. You know, you could get it online. You can get it on Amazon, right? So there's people now who are out there, especially young adults, who actually are very inventive with these things. I think given the opportunity, yes, I think it could be definitely a threat picture in this, yes.
And let me just continue on that vein, and that is the level of threat. Do you feel that it's going up? So there's two things to ask here. One is level of threat because people can use drones. The second is level of threat because people are mad about something. Those are two different numbers. And I wondered if you feel each year the second part of that, because they're mad about something, gets larger. Your turn.
Thank you. We're rotating. It took me a while to see the pattern. So. Yeah, got it.
It's a pattern.
So level of threat increasing is how I understand your question. I think it's a matter of access. You know, drones are very easy to get. They're getting cheaper. Like I said, the technology is iterating, and it's just a matter of, all right, is it easier to get a gun, walk into a venue, and commit an attack? Is it easier to, you know, S-Fest, get in? So the good thing is, in the context of hardening targets for special events, that so much work is done in advance, and it's threat intelligence specific, it's venue specific, it's specific to the nuanced complexities of that particular AOR. It's thanks to Bobby and Akil controlling that and making sure that we think of everything to harden this target. And then really, it's preventing down to the granular level the easiest method of an attack. Drones, I mean, it gets down to like, do we put up nets? You know, like, and this is the conversations I had, you know, like, do we make LA look like a goddamn Topgolf, you know? Because it'll work, you know, like, in Ukraine, it is a tactic. They line roadways
Yes, I know.
with nets, so you were there, you know?
They do.
The nets, so, you know, they have to come down in a certain trajectory to cook off, if they're armed, explosives, right? And if you come over the top, unarmed or armed, it's much harder to have a meaningful impact, so to speak, not to diminish an impact at all. So it's really like, how creative can the United States government and the servants of which sit in this room be to make it hard for somebody who is going to take the easy way out to do that attack? Does it make sense?
Yeah. One more question for you, and it's a follow-up from before. Why is it so hard to get this legislation passed?
Oh, man. Listen, I'm not a lawyer, clearly. Look at me.
Just saying.
Yeah, I've made some decisions, poor ones. There are righteous concerns with Title III wiretap intercepts issues, privacy issues, and it comes down to widening the aperture of the lawmakers and the American public to realize, to mitigate a drone, you're grabbing that digital license plate, it's controlled sometimes by a phone or otherwise, and you're grabbing that piece. You're not getting into their phone and taking their contacts and doing this and that. You're just using the minimal level of intrusion to grab control of that drone as much as you can technologically, and bring it out of the threat space. There are serious and legitimate concerns about, well, how far are you going to go? Like, what if I'm just a hobbyist flying a drone and I flew it into an area that was a TFR and I didn't look up where I was allowed to fly it that day? And then they're concerned about violating people's privacy, which we have to be very careful with. However, I think the expansion of 124N, the efforts to expand it are very purposeful and very necessary, and they have to find a way. They have to, because all we need is for Bobby and our state and local and other partners to be allowed to be responsible for that legislation and the way they exercise that mitigation effort. But we're already doing it on the federal level. There is no reason that Bobby and all the other folks shouldn't be doing it as well. And we want to give them the tools. And I think it's necessary too. But you have to be purposeful, and you have to appeal to the public as well, and be very specific. Like, this is how we do it, as much as we want to portray. But we're not going into your phone and looking at your texts. We're not going in and stealing your contacts, and so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yes, that makes sense. Let me just ask one more round of questions. I'm looking at our time, and that is this. So Paris had an Olympics. They had drones. They figured it out. There was no event that was worrisome. Are there models? Do you reach out to other countries to find out, right, how did you do it? And are there some gold standards that you discover as you look for models, as you sort of go through what happened in Paris in 2024?
We've sent several delegations through the unit that Brian was in charge of, as well as LA 28 and FBI Los Angeles, have gone back and forth to Paris to see what their law enforcement did, how the government responded. So the short answer to your question is absolutely. The threat landscape is changing moment by moment. The threats that Paris was dealing with then have changed exponentially to even today. And as you know, they're going to change exponentially even till 2028. The capabilities, the technology, the types of things we're trying to prevent, we're always kind of behind that learning curve on what they're using. That's why we're so hyper-focused on the battlefield to see what they're doing and how they're using AI with drones, and what types of drones. Are they quadcopter type drones, or are they the Shahed, Iranian type drones, what they're using? So yes, we are doing all of that and trying to kind of forecast where to go with this. But as we've kind of discussed here, you see some of the challenges that we're meeting.
And so they can make tons of mistakes, but you have to be right every single time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
New York, same idea. Do you fly to Paris? Because it's a city question, not a federal question, do you find that you have found models and can change what you're doing because you've learned something from these models?
So, like I mentioned before, the intelligence division had these international liaison posts. And we have a post in Paris, we have a post in the UK, Interpol, and all those other countries. And we do look at that because, it's part of the threat landscape, right? What's the best thing that we could learn as a city agency, what's going on overseas? And what's very important to us to actually know the technology, know the methods of drones, that we actually look to our federal partners in the JTTF. There's some information that's classified information that, the law enforcement people do not have access to. So, based on our partners and the relationships we have, our drone team, our drone mitigation team, or drone identification detection squad, is actually the process of getting deputized. So we can share the best practices, share the information, and that classified landscape that the normal, municipal police department cannot have. So we're preparing for drone mitigation, when that legislation does pass, and hopefully it does pass soon, we'll be in the process to actually be trained. We'll be in the process to actually know those, the threats and the environments, what in New York City should know. I think that's the best way to prepare.
I want to know if this is, in some ways, a generational problem. What I learned in this conference last year was teen terrorists. That if you look at what the numbers are, it's 18. COVID had a lot to do with that. They, self-radicalized because they had nothing else to do. And I wondered if drones are in the same category. This is a technological advantage. Certainly what you saw in Ukraine is how many 14-year-olds already know how to make a drone. While if you're 28, maybe, you're a little old for this, and it's not so important for you to make a big statement in New York City. And I wondered if you thought that that's where you have to look, that it is a generational issue.
Might be. I think it would be a misstep to limit it to generational. If you're motivated enough, you're going to do it. Do I know how to fly a drone? No, I had people for that. So, frankly, I feel bad because I used to call them nerds. But they're not, and I feel bad about that now. I do. I'm sorry. It could be generational. I'm not trying to dodge the question. I just don't know the answer. So I don't think that you should put a box over it and limit it to that. But the FBI and the JTTF, NYPD, and everybody, they don't have to worry about that either because they're looking at everything. So you follow the threat. It doesn't matter how old you are. But of course, like the youth is much more technologically savvy than a 45-year-old curmudgeon like myself. But you're right, you touched it. In Kyiv or elsewhere in the Ukraine, there are warehouses filled with teenage gamers. They got more bodies on them than I do, you know? So it's...
Hackers and gamers.
Right, yeah.
It's their world now.
Yeah, and they're saving their country, you know? However, there's a level of, for me, it's a little bit alarming as well.
We've got, almost 30 seconds left. So I think I want to say thank you very much. Thank you to Akil Davis. Thank you to Roberto Rios. And thank you to Brian Driscoll.